Alright, welcome back to CMSC 201. This is lecture 4.1, which is the baking cookies example. At this point, you should have already watched lecture 4.0, which is the introduction to nesting of if statements. So remember that if you want, all nesting of if statements means is sticking one if statement inside of another if statement. So let's do that in this example where we check all the recipe for the Toll House chocolate chip cookie recipe, and then what we're going to do is check to make sure that you have all the right stuff. We're going to nest really far down, and the reason why we're going to nest that far down is because I feel like it, and because it's an example. It's not really a great way to do this, but it's definitely a good nesting example. So we need all the following stuff: 2 1/4 cups of flour, 2 large eggs, 2 sticks of butter, we'll measure it in sticks, 3/4 cup granulated sugar, 3/4 cup brown sugar, 2 cups chocolate chips, which I opine that it is slightly too much. Let's not ask about the salt, baking soda, and vanilla extract, though I will say it's very easy to run out of vanilla extract and then you're stuck. So, okay, let's begin. So for instance here, I'm going to run an if statement here, or input statement. The input statement is to get a flour quantity. And the flour quantity is going to just ask how much flour do you have, and we're going to ask for it as a float. The reason why we ask for it as a float is because we need 2.25, aka 2 1/4 cup of flour. So I would always say, and I think that it's vaguely true, is that the only time you should ever use mixed numbers, for instance like 2 1/4 cup, is definitely in baking. It's okay, but nowhere else, right? If you're gonna write 2 plus 1/4, that's fine. If you're gonna write 2.25, that's fine. If you're gonna write 9 divided by 4, that's fine. But avoid this like the plague unless you're doing baking. Okay, so basically here we're going to say if the flour quantity is bigger than or equal to 9/4, which is 2.25, then we are going to print, or actually what we're going to do is we're going to run a second input statement. We're going to ask, good, you have the flour for this job, now how many eggs do you have, right? And I'm going to cast this as an integer because I'm going to assume that you no fractional eggs exist, right? Now, you might say, what if there are fractional eggs? And I say, then you live in a different universe. So let's proceed. So I'm going to put an else clause on this, and I want to explain which thing the else clause is going to go with, but currently we only have one if statement. So let's just check it out and make sure it works. So 5 cups of flour, good. This input statement doesn't do anything because there's no code after it. Let's see, we have 1, go to the store and buy flour. So that works, say -3, right? We have less flour than 0, go to the store and buy some flour, right? So, okay. So if, for instance, eggs is bigger than or equal to 2, which is the number you need, then what we're going to do is we're going to check the butter. So we say butter is equal to int input how many sticks of butter do you have, and so notice here, if they don't have enough eggs, we'll print out something like what should we print about eggs? Something more creative. Get some chickens, make some eggs. You know the drill. Okay. And so here we're going to say butter is equal to int input how many sticks of butter you have. So let's say good so far. How many sticks of butter do you have? And so we'll say if the number of sticks of butter is bigger than or equal to 2, And I'm casting it as an integer. Here you can argue that maybe we can use a float. I don't care. Right? Let's assume that you are a butter purist and you only ever keep full sticks of butter or use full sticks of butter. You do not keep any partial sticks of butter, so we're casting it to an int. Right? If you think that you're going to go into your fridge and find little bits and you're going to add them all together, you might have 5 3/8 stick of butter, then fine. That's acceptable to you, I suppose. So here, if you have enough butter, we'll say, and then let me just show you what I'm going to do here. Yes, no is equal to input. Do you have 3/4 cup granulated sugar and 3/4 cup of brown sugar? And so let's check. If they don't have enough butter, we'll say something like that. Here we're going to say if yes, no is equal to yes. Then we will print out that we say, all right, you are good to go. And so what if instead of saying you are, I'm going to say you're? So you notice that I used the single tick for a quotation. And what if I want to use that inside of a string? The answer is we can do that with an escape sequence. It allows us to use the single quotation mark, the single tick mark, whatever you want to call it, as a character rather than a string terminator. Right, so this thing is actually going to terminate the string in Python, so it's going to end the string. And so if you don't use the backslash, or I guess the /, it will end the string. So there you go, you need to use that. Else print, you need some more sugar. So let's see this all working. Right, so let's say we have 4 cups of flour, we have 12 eggs, we have 1 stick of butter. So that's where it stops us. So you see that what had happened was it had enough flour, so it went into this first if statement. Had enough eggs, so it goes into this second if statement. Doesn't have enough butter, so it skips all of this code here and tells you this. Right? Now, you had enough eggs, so it doesn't print out this, and you had enough flour, so it doesn't print out this, right? Only this else statement happens, because, well, now craziness would happen. Okay, so let's try this again. So how much flour do you have? Let's say 12 cups. You say you have 12 cups of, or 12 eggs, you have 12 sticks of butter, and do you have the sugar that you need? And I'm not asking about the chocolate chips, because I don't want to get too deep into the nesting, but let's say we say yes. All right, you're good to go. Let's do it again. 12. Do you have, so notice what happened here. I hit one too many 12s, but that's a good example. Do you have 3/4 cup of this? And I said 12. You need more sugar, right? Because here it says if yes, no is equal to yes. You must answer yes or no. So, or you must answer yes for it to be true. Anything else gets you dumped into this else statement and it's false. So let's say 12, 12, 12, and let's say, argle bargle, you need more sugar, 12, 12, 12, and finally, what's another good example? So how about yes? You need more sugar. What's that about, right? What's happened here? So if you notice, this is in caps, and this here is in lowercase, right? Lowercase, and so what it's going to do is it's going to test strictly against lowercase, strictly against lowercase. So you could say, or yes, no is equal to yes, or yes, no is equal to yes, but then of course you wouldn't get the, maybe someone does something even stupider and says YES or something like that, right? But, so this is definitely one of the ways to have that work. You can have if yes, no is equal to yes, or if yes, no is equal to yes, or if yes, no is equal to yes, right? So that works. The only danger here is that you might not encounter all the cases. So instead of this, I am now going to legalize for homework 2. You are permitted to, without really knowing too much about how strings are classes and how classes have methods and calling the functions and all of those things, you don't have to worry about it. This will convert your string to lowercase. All right, you are permitted to use the dot lower method. And so the dot lower method is just going to take whatever they enter. So let's do this again. So our favorite 12, 12, 12. Nope, caught myself. Capital Y-E-S, enter. And so it says, oh, okay, you're good to go. And so how did it do that? What it did was it said, I'm going to take this string, and the dot means operate on this variable with this function. So it's going to take this and it's going to lower it to lowercase. Now, not everything has a dot lower, only strings do, but that's fine because that's all we really need it for. Okay? So that's it for this example. I think here's all the code together. Nesting statements can make a kind of beautiful symmetry in a sense. I definitely think that there's some something nice about well-nested statements. Generally, you want to avoid 4 levels of nesting like this, but in this example, it's what we're going to do because we're teaching nesting today. Okay, so that's all for this example. We'll have another example in just a second on the next video. Okay.